Perfect. So just to flag, I suppose, what you all are probably feeling in your waters. This is actually the sewage water testing. So COVID-19 activity in the community persists at high levels, and we've all been through a pretty crazy sort of summer period with a big sort of Omicron subvariant wave driving things again. Influenza activity, by contrast, is low, which is fortunate, and RSV activity remains low, but it's beginning to increase. And it appears as though the COVID activity is slowing in growth, which is promising, but it has been a very busy period over summer, which has rivaled our winter peak, which is a little bit unseasonal for us. In terms of what it looks like locally, so CCLHD has been notified of 171,450 cases since the start of the pandemic. But you can see there, this is just since August 2023. And as I mentioned, these are just PCR confirmed numbers, which, as we know, is a huge underrepresentation of the true burden in the community. And this has all been driven by initially the Eris EG5 variant, but that was overtaken a few weeks ago by JN1, which was sort of a novel variant that appeared a few months ago, but it appears that the growth rates are slowing, which is beneficial. How this has really played out for us in public health land, and probably for you in your practices to some extent as well, is a big uptick in residential aged care facility outbreaks. So that's just a bit of a picture of the activity over 2023 and into 2024. And you can see that we've got 36 RASFs on the coast, and half of them were in outbreak over Christmas, New Year. So it's been a very busy and challenging season for many of us. And certainly from the mortality data, we've noticed that all-cause mortality has been elevated above expected background rates pretty much since the start of 2022. So there really hasn't been much of a break for anybody. And so a big shout out to you out there in primary care land who are the forefront of this. So I suppose, what can we do? You've probably received some messaging recently about the arrival of the flu vaccine, which we're anticipating from early March this year. The orders, as per usual, are just through the State Vaccine Centre. And we're still awaiting updated ATAGI advice about COVID boosters, which is a little frustrating because I'm sure you've got a lot of patients that are in that scenario of having had maybe a couple of boosters during 2023, but we're still awaiting advice about 2024. So we'll certainly keep you posted when that comes. In terms of other developments in the vaccination landscape, you'll all be familiar with the Shingrix rollout and its replacement of Zostavax as a vaccine against herpes zoster. So the addition of that on the NIP from the 1st of November last year, and obviously that hasn't been without its difficulties in terms of constrained supply. And again, really appreciate your patience with the way that that's been sort of dribbling out into general practice. But yes, it will continue, supply will continue to roll out. I think there's been approximately 500,000 doses administered to date, which is a great achievement. So that's Shingrix. In terms of what else we're dealing with in public health, a lot of travel-related illnesses, so lots of people coming back from overseas with weird and wonderful things. Fortunately, we haven't had any measles here on the coast. We did have a mumps case, which was interesting, in a return traveller, and we've also had a couple of cases of cutaneous diphtheria, numerous cases of typhoid fever. So I suppose these are all things to be mindful of in your practice as you're seeing returning travellers, but even better if you see people before they go on holidays. Please encourage them to consider protecting themselves against travel-related illnesses, because there are obviously some vaccines that people can have, and also just check that they're up to date with their routine immunisations against things like measles. In terms of something completely different, it feels a bit strange to be talking about heat when it seems there's been a bit of a chilly change, but certainly the weekend was pretty horrible. We have had a series of sort of heat wave events, and there is a bit of health messaging out there about heat-related illness. So our New South Wales health resources on heat-related illness have just been updated. So feel free to have a look at that page in your own time. And maybe a key consideration for the GP audience is that with heat waves or with hazard reduction burns, for example, we can see a deterioration in ambient air quality. So one to be mindful of with your patients that might have pre-existing conditions like asthma, for them to be on top of their asthma action plans. So there's always a consideration that respiratory illnesses can be exacerbated during heat waves, bushfire events, and hazard reduction burns. That was pretty much all. I'm just very open to any questions or, what you're experiencing out there in GP land and questions from population health perspective.